So I offered a title for today's talk, Working with the Mind in Uncertain Times. And as I referred to a little bit off the top this morning, it's always uncertain times. I'd like to maybe frame today's talk on the three fundamental teachings, the three characteristics they're called, that the Buddha taught, the three characteristics of human existence, of sentient being existence, I suppose, which are dukkha, anicca, anatta. Dukkha, anicca, anatta. A-N-I-C-C-A, anicca. Anatta, I believe A-N-A-T-T-A. May not have that one correct off the top of my head. Dukkha, D-U-K-K-H-A. Yes, I will tell you what those words mean if they're unfamiliar or you need a reminder. These three characteristics of existence, that phrase is fairly straightforward. The characteristics of existence, these will be part of our experience being born in a human or mortal body. Dukkha is the quality of, it's, as you may be familiar with, it's often translated into English. These are the Pali or Sanskrit words, slightly different spellings in each. Rod would know all about that by now. But dukkha, D-U-K-K-H-A, is usually translated into English as unsatisfactory or suffering. I prefer overall the word unsatisfactory because it gets more to the root of what the Buddha is teaching around the experience of dukkha. Suffering in English, most of us think of capital S suffering, I think. We think of trauma, tragedy, death, rape, child abuse, animal abuse, cancer, car accidents, suffering. And we're familiar with it personally, we're familiar with it in our friendship circle, in the larger circle, in the world of people we don't know. We relate to the idea of suffering fairly easily. Yes, suffering, got it. Suffering is part of being alive. It's very important, especially if you're newer to the teachings of Buddha Dharma, the teachings of Buddha being the teaching of awakeness, being a fully awake being, awakening the mind from the delusions and confusions of the clouds of storytelling, and Buddha Dharma, Dharma meaning many, many things, but here meaning essentially teachings of, or path to being awake. If you're newer to the teaching of Buddha Dharma, it's very important that you don't misunderstand, as I did in early days, and many of us can, misunderstand the teaching as a negative teaching. Life is suffering, then you die. That's pretty negative. I think we should all go do something more fun if that's all I had to offer this morning. What the Buddha is saying, what our life-lived experience so far is saying, is sometimes there is suffering, yeah? Anybody have any suffering in their body, mind, or lives? Apparently only about half of us? Come on now. Right. And some of these sufferings, which is why I said I prefer the translation unsatisfactory, which is a more accurate translation of the word dukkha, some of these sufferings are very, very, very small. I reached for my coat on our leaving the home this morning, and someone other than me had placed a somewhat heavy object. I actually think my delightful cleaning person did it. She did a spring cleaning of the boot closet, and a bit of a heavier object was up top. And when I, untidily and abruptly jerked my coat off the hanger, it fell down on my toe, and I think it hit every nerve ending in the human body in that moment. It was outstandingly painful for a very minor insult. There were F-bombs dropped. I'm not proud of it, but I like full disclosure. So a very small suffering for 5 or 10 minutes until it wasn't broken or anything. It was just, it hit nerve endings, and holy bananas, the body said, danger, danger, going to die, which is the body's job with pain, is to tell us, be careful, bad things could happen. That was a small, oh, hello. There's a little fly hanging out. That was a small unsatisfactoriness, a very small, teeny tiny suffering. There are smaller ones. Maybe you stopped to get a beverage at your favorite coffee shop on the way here this morning, and there was a little bit of a line. Goodness, other people wanted a beverage too. And you felt a tiny bit impatient. Or maybe you were a little worried you'd be late, or you were meant to come help set up or something. Teeny tiny unsatisfactoriness. This is what dukkha points to. It points to even the most infinitesimal, small, teeny tiny hint of dissatisfaction. So you're on the perfect beach, and it's the perfect temperature. You've got the perfect umbrella. The shade heat ratio is ideal for what you enjoy. You've got the perfect beverage, and you've got the perfect snack and the perfect book, and it's wonderful, and you're only a third into an amazing novel, so you've got all the rest of it to read. Everything is so great. And then a little teeny tiny fly starts buzzing around your face. And there's just a minuscule bit of, I wish the fly wasn't there. That's also dukkha. The smallest unsatisfactory sensation or story of, I wish it was just a little bit different, is where we suffer. Of course, with the vast things, cancer and death, we're deeply moved to not want it to be so. So that's dukkha. One of the qualities or characteristics of being alive in a mortal body is there will be some dissatisfaction. We've all said, yeah, we've experienced that. I think we accept that as true. Again, as I said, newer or long-term Dharma persons, we need to remind ourselves that doesn't mean it's negative. It means it's seeing reality as it is. That there's joy and beauty and grace and transcendence and moments of delight. There's so much robust beauty and greatness in the world. Look at the beautiful flowers, the lovely statue, the fact that we're here, that we're of enough sound body and mind to come together in this way, to be respectful of distance, even the wisdom of placing the chairs further apart this morning. Thank you, team. All of it. Beautiful, wonderful, celebratory. There's also dukkha. There's unsatisfactoriness as well, and that's okay. There's nothing we can really do about it, except there's a lot we can do about how we react to dukkha, how we coexist with the dukkhas that are inevitable, mixed in with the beauties and the joys. The sukhas, by the way, any of you who've met my dog, one of my dogs is named Sukha, which is happy joy mind, grace mind. Sukhas, not quite, but we'll go with it, are the opposite pair to dukkha. My dearly beloved, now and then, if the dog's being a brat, likes to call her dukkha. I don't think that's fair at all. It's going to give her a complex. Sometimes sukha creates dukkha, that's for sure. Only if in our minds we find what's happening unsatisfactory. So the three characteristics of existence, the first is dukkha, the second is anicca. Sometimes these are reversed, it doesn't matter for today's purposes. Anicca translates in English best to impermanence, a common word most of you have heard in the context of Dharma or in the context of knowing the English language. Impermanence, things don't last forever. Everything changes. Things change. There's all sorts of wonderful phrases, both from biblical sources and probably Ann Landers or something, and vernacular. The only thing constant is change, right? The only thing you can be sure of is death and taxes, right? This too shall pass. All these ways that we know from being in a human mortal body that things change. Nothing will remain the same. You expect this, you plan this. Another one I like, many of you have heard, if you want to make God laugh, tell her your plans. Right? We plan, we control, we think we have agency. We have some, but best laid plans. How many of you have had to radically alter your plans in the week to come due to what is happening in the world around the COVID virus? I'm supposed to be on a plane tomorrow at 6 a.m., first to New York City, where I was meant to film a big show. See, everything changes. And then to Washington, D.C., where I was meant to attend the major psychotherapy conference in the world, really, with 3,000 other people. So obviously that got canceled a few days ago. So first that got canceled. Every time I checked my email, I'm sure it's the same for you, something had changed. In a pretty dramatic way, in that it, meant canceled flights and canceled this, and no big deal, none of it. Like, no big deal. I'm fine, you're fine, currently. Let's keep it that way as best we can. But the change was really remarkable. I'd see a patient, I'd check my email. Oh, we've had to cancel the whole conference. Okay, readjust. I guess I'll still go to New York. 4 or 5 days ago where that seemed like that might be a viable choice. Day later, going to New York, not a viable choice. Day later, can't even go if I want to probably because the flights are going to change. And I know for all of you, similar or more dramatic changes. Working to get my father home from Mexico, he was going to drive starting next week through all of Mexico, through all of the U.S. and into Canada. Now, in a week or to, we don't know, but it's possible that would mean his car might need to be quarantined, or they might ask him to wait at the border for 2 weeks before he could come in. Nothing particularly dastardly, but something to say, well, maybe it's better, if you can, to get on a direct flight home just to avoid trouble. I know all of you are dealing with that and more, right? Things we deal with. Impermanence. Darn that Buddha for being right yet again. It's not so much that he was right. He was a profound observer of reality. Reality teaches us everything changes. Best laid plans of mice and men, ... So, okay, we're in the midst of some dukkha, some unsatisfactoriness, and worse. We're in the midst of a very good teaching of impermanence and change, and it changes every few hours. The information changes, right? It may get much, much, much worse. It may level out and start to come around, and none of us know. There are some wise predictions, ? So, we're in the midst of really a changing time. So we've got dukkha, and also lots of sukha. We've got impermanence and change, and we've got, at best, I hope, and maybe this will be more the focus of the talk today, anatta, which is the teaching of non-self. I'm not going to go into it from a more typical Dharma point of view this morning. Some of you are very familiar with those teachings. To some of you, it's brand new. But the idea that the turn I'm taking this morning, in terms of anatta, is I'm going to phrase it, don't make it so personal. Don't make it so personal. Another way to say it, maybe a little more challenging, I don't mean to offend, it's not all about you. Don't make it so personal, it's not all about you. Better phrase there, maybe for each of us, it's not all about me. It's not all about, what? Of course it is. Oh, I can't go to New York and film my important television show now. Darn that virus. But we have to be careful that the mind doesn't go there and make it personal. Look at how inconvenienced I am. Clearly none of you are, because I'm far more important than you load. Watch for that. Watch for the mind's tendency to make it about me and take it personally. And of course, the perhaps more potentially destructive lack of wisdom, which would be ignorance. Fear-based responses that come when we make it about us. Right? I'm fond of saying, and I hope it's true, I don't know that I can say it is true, that under times of stress and pressure, it brings out both the best and the worst of people, right? Brings out both the best and the worst of each of us, potentially. In some really small ways. I have absolutely unshakable faith in each and every one of you in this room, and each and every person on the island and beyond, that at root we have Buddha nature. At root, we are shining, beautiful, compassionate beings. When we are fearful, in pain, threatened, caught in a story, caught in an interpretation of reality, with a bit of a dramatic twist, we can behave in ways that are not in alignment with our Buddha nature. Anybody disagree? We can all be jerks. Each and every one of us has probably been at least a small jerk at some point this week, above and beyond the virus situation. Just generally, you were in a crabby mood and you snapped at your friend. I don't know, leave me alone, or something. You were grumpy to a loved one or a stranger, or just generally were in a bit of a foul mood all by yourself in here because something didn't go the way you wanted. That's okay. Be kind and compassionate to yourself. It happens to me too, of course. It's called being not yet a fully awake Buddha. But under our clouds of selfishness and personal, and it's about me and to heck with you, and I need to take care of number one. We're beautiful, compassionate beings. So under pressure, under fear, which is a good, perhaps exaggerated but representative statement of possibly the state of the world, that's a little bit of a big statement right now, is that there's some pressure, right? There's lack of knowing, there's things changing, there's a virus that has an impact, there's the unknown. So we can say stress can be, for some beings, pretty high. Under stress, when we forget anatta, when we forget that we're not a separate self, me against you, look out for number one, an individual. When we forget interconnectedness, when we forget interdependent origination and the 12 steps of what leads to liberation or dukkha, when we get ignorant, when we get caught in our ignorance, get caught in our moha, our delusion, we're all going to die. I'm not going to be okay. There's not going to be enough toilet paper. Do you know that toilet paper is made in Canada? And that there's 2 major factories on the mainland? And also, as I'm fond of saying, we live in the woods, grab a leaf. But that's what fear does. It makes the mind, if we're not careful, if we don't work with the mind under difficult times, it makes the mind irrational. It makes the mind become very personal and very selfish. I need it. Well, my friends might need it. Well, my family might need it. Well, doesn't her and him and her and her and him need it too? Last night I saw a beautiful mid-30s-ish patient of mine, and she was talking about a friend of hers at work, and she said, my friend was saying, well, if my family gets ill, they're saying it's good to have some Tylenol and Advil around for fever control. It's with the general flu. And so she said, I'm going to go to Walmart and get some Tylenol and Advil. Wise choice, good choice. So she went, and then she came back rather gleefully. I guess she went on her lunch break because they work close to a Walmart in South Duncan there, North Duncan there, whatever. And she came back and said, there was only 4 bottles. I bought them all. Not an atypical response right now, including some of us in this room. So if you've done that, forgive yourself and give a couple bottles away, please. But look what happens when we forget anatta, when we make it about me and myself and I'm important. I'm more important than you or you or you, and attack with you if you have a fever. I'm good. Hoarding my Advil. But I'll give it to people I like. That's where we forget. That's where we forget anatta. That's where we get personal and unintentionally, because it's based in fear and delusion. It's not intentional for the most part. Sometimes it is, and that's just bigger fear and delusion. We look out for number 1 and we forget compassion. We forget Buddha nature. We forget interdependent origination. And I'm going to repeat the primary word there. We forget compassion, which is that all beings suffer at some points in some ways, dukkha. And that I am not separate or different from you. And that my pain is not special or different. And that at my best, we co-suffer. At our best, we co-awaken. But if I'm in trouble, you're in trouble. If I'm fine and you're in trouble, I'm in trouble. This is the Bodhisattva way. If you're not familiar with that term, the Bodhisattva is a being, there are many in this room, who make a conscious choice to say, to the best of my limited ability, because we're not awake Buddhas yet, we want to help relieve all beings from suffering. Another way to put it is, let's say this is a ridiculous notion, so I'm going to conceptualize it that way. I'm using it as a teaching point only. Let's say the Dalai Lama showed up at my house in Maple Bay and said, "Psst, I've got enlightenment just for you, Cheryl. Don't tell anybody. But if you let me in and you tell me the password, I'm going to give you enlightenment." I'm like, well, could Richard come too? Nope. Just you. Nice knowing you, buddy. I'm out of here. Just you. But it's really good because you'll be an enlightened being. And you won't suffer and you'll see the truth of reality and that will be great. Pretty tempting offer. But I can't bring Richard. And I can't bring Neil and his parents. Neil's parents live close to me. And I can't bring all of you. I like you people. I think you're fabulous. You're mini Buddhas. You're growing Buddhas. You're fantastic. May you all surpass me quickly. A bodhisattva says, oh, that's a heck of a good offer. But I want to help all beings. I want everybody to be free. If we put it in a more, I don't know, secular way, if you win $100 million tomorrow, but there's a rule you can't share $1 with anybody else, that would kind of suck. I mean, how many houses and cars can you buy? You're not allowed to give anything away. You're not allowed to give it to anybody else. Blech. I think all of us, when we have a lottery fantasy, one of the first things, the first might be the house and the car, that's okay, you're human, is, wow, I can, fund my niece's college education. Wow, I can, buy my mom a really nice house because I don't like where she lives. Wow, I can start a nonprofit. I can, send all Dharma students on year-long retreats. with a private chef. I don't know. Often our minds rather quickly go to sharing, yeah? Because we're good beings at heart. So, the Bodhisattva says, I don't want enlightenment just for myself. I'll postpone full awakening, which is what the Dalai Lama's done, by the way. Postpone full awakening so I can help all beings. You want to see a Bodhisattva? There's a living, breathing one right now. There's more, but the Dalai Lama, literally working tirelessly in his 80s, in ill health, tirelessly on the behalf of all beings, helping as many beings unfold as possible. So dukkha is happening. It's always happening, but right now there's kind of a, there's a dukkha with a great publicist right now, which is the virus, meaning it's very present. People know about it, and it involves suffering. It obviously involves illness and death for some beings. It involves fear and concern for a lot of beings, and it involves changes currently and maybe for quite a while, we don't know yet, to our choices and where we're living our lives right now. Dukkha. Anatta is where we get into a ton of trouble. I'm reviewing here. If it's about me and not you, I go buy all the toilet paper out of fear and selfishness. Right? And we've all done similar things. So if you've done similar things, forgive and share, forgive and share. This is a call to action for each and every one of us. For that tendency to make it about us. Obviously, I have that tendency too. I'm not awake yet. If it's something as simple as, here's a simple one. When I fly, I like a window seat. It's the only way I can ever nap is if I can sort of lay on the wall a little bit. So I try to go on 24 hours before I fly, because I'm usually too cheap to pre-buy the seat, and get a window seat. That's a tiny bit of selfishness, right? Because I like a window seat. And so I try to get one. I don't, so far anyway, shove old ladies out of the way and grab the window seat and punch them in the head. But if I did that, you probably shouldn't come to these classes. You should find a slightly better teacher. I have a lot of flaws, but if they were that glaringly obvious, you might want to have a gentle, quiet talk with me offline. If it was gross, when it is gross selfishness, because I have gross selfishness as well, hopefully we catch it, we fix it, we repair it, and we do our best to let it go. So protecting self is very normal. I do not want anyone heading out of here feeling chagrined or upset with themselves. Instead, feel curious. Say, when I make a more selfish choice, what's that about? What's that about? What am I trying to protect? And there's always a shade of fear, or a lot of fear in it, right? Panic buying, they're calling it. Excellent, accurate term. Panic buying. I might need it. I might need it. I might need it. Not we might need it. We might need it. Therefore, I'll get a reasonable amount and I'll leave the rest on the shelves for other people to get a reasonable amount. Because until now, that's worked really well. Right? Have you ever gone into a store and not had any toilet paper till now? Nope. So it just shows what the mind does in uncertain times. What the mind does when it's feeding on fear and the unknown. You want anxiety? Just create an unknown. For those of us in the room, about 1/3 of humans have a diagnosable anxiety disorder. Certainly something I've struggled with to a major degree in my first 4 or 4.5 decades. More or less under control now, but still have suffered horribly with anxiety, as many of you have. If you want anxiety to have a party in your brain, create a situation of not knowing. When anxiety doesn't have answers, but what's going to happen? But I don't know if that will. Anxiety calms when it has answers. So anxiety is a bit of a fool because those answers are also impermanent, but they help in the short term. Well, if that happens, I'll do this is an excellent anxiety management technique. Have answers. When the anxiety says, but what's going to happen if? You say, well, if that happens, hopefully it won't, we'll do A. What if A doesn't work? Then we'll try B. But what if that doesn't work? Then we'll try C. At some point, much like a terrorized child, anxiety gets tired. And when you keep telling it, we'll do this, but what if, then we'll do that. But what if, then we'll do that. At some point, anxiety says, okay. How do you work with your mind in uncertain times? I don't know how you work with it, but I'm going to suggest the way we all work with it is with compassion and understanding and utilizing a calming practice and recognizing the story as a story and gathering as much accurate information, data, we like to call it in this teaching, as we can. So this is a great time to practice because there's a lot of information and misinformation. And watch what the mind does with it. Watch what the mind wants to do with it. Watch what you're seeking. Watch the reactions. Practice calming practices. That might be meditation. It might be stretch, yoga. It might be going for a run. It might be laying out, spread-eagled under a big blanket in that gorgeous sun and soaking up vitamin D today. I don't know how much there is in the winter sun, but that's okay. You're happy or not happy in the mind. If you don't remember anything else from today's talk, remember that one. You're happy or not happy in the mind. So regardless of circumstances, when circumstances are lovely, we can be miserable. I'm sure we've all been there. We've been in a lovely place or at a lovely dinner or on a lovely holiday, or our relationship and family are doing really well, but we're suffering. And we've been in really unpleasant circumstances where we've been actually feeling really, really good. Wow, things are super tough, but I'm doing really well. I'm quite happy. I'm quite calm. I'm quite grounded. You're happy or unhappy in the mind. So, you're happy or unhappy, awake or non-awake, based on this, not based on COVID-19, not based on your best friend saying they never want to talk to you again, not based on someone you love being in an accident and being killed. How you relate to reality is all you got. It's all you've ever got. But a lot of the times our life are trundling along, for those of us blessed to be in fairly healthy bodies in a fairly healthy country, as countries go, we ignore all this stuff. We act as though we're immortal. Is that the right word? We're never going to die. We act as though everything's going to be fine. We act as though we're going to be fine. We act as though there's nothing to worry about. Well, there is nothing to worry about, but there's realities to be looked at and to modify our thoughts, behaviors, and actions accordingly. So, when I sent a little email to a few of the committee members on, I guess, Thursday, I said, hey, I'm still planning to teach on Saturday. What do you think? I'll teach on working with your mind in uncertain times. And I wasn't entirely sure what the 3 or 4 people would say back. Because they might have said, that's a great idea, but we probably shouldn't have a class. We're all well within health guidelines right now. But instead, they all came and said, yeah, that sounds great. I said, great. I thought it sounded great too. I don't mean that from an ego point of view. I mean, what a good time to gather as wise beings and say, what can we do with our minds? And how can we maybe influence those around us just by being calmer or wiser or more straightforward during a time where irrational panic is a possibility? The best or the worst of us can come out under pressure. So, from a Buddha Dharma point of view, be a human being, but also be a bodhisattva. I was listening to something Jack Kornfield was talking about in an interview he did this week, and he said, he used an American term, I'll switch to a Canadian term, but he said, be a bodhisattva, remember your Buddha nature, but also remember your social insurance number. And he was speaking to holding both truths. That we hopefully hold our Buddha nature, our higher nature, our compassion, our bodhisattva vow, or our just general trying to be a good human being. But we also need to deal with relative reality. Right? Know your social insurance number, cook some food and eat it. He was just saying, we're both working at the, what in Buddha Dharma we'd call the absolute level and the relative level. If the virus progresses in the way it may progress, roughly 50% of us in this room will probably get a wicked case or a not so wicked case of the flu, and it could take the life of some of us or some beings we know who have contraindications, etc. Even the occasional healthy, robust person could end up losing their life, actualizing their mortality. perhaps earlier than they might have otherwise. We don't know for sure. We've got some indications and some information. This may sound like a little bit like tough love, and we're all going to die. The only thing we don't know is when. I hope, none of us hope no being. I hope no being of any kind from now on dies from this virus complications. The virus itself, much like HIV, etc., the virus itself doesn't kill you. The complications thereof may. The three characteristics of existence are impermanence, dukkha, and stop taking it so personally. Everything changes. There is some suffering in the midst of the joys, the wonders, and the opportunities to awaken and be compassionate, kind, and help others and yourself. Be interdependently connected as a community of good beings, reaching a hand out to those below and reaching a hand up to those above to help each other climb the mountain. Whatever happens, we can be okay. The same way when we all eventually die, I hope not for many decades, from whatever accident, illness, or simple shutting down happens in the body, that we're okay. Because there is nothing unique about the current situation. It's just taking a form that is somewhat unique. We've been here before. The flu of 1918 is the one in the memory of some people still alive on the planet. Similar and different. But the part, my friends, that's not unique is that everybody dies, is that there is dukkha in every human existence, and that when we take it personally and we're caught in our constellated self in a state of greed, hatred, and or delusion, the three poisons of the mind, we behave poorly, potentially, instead of behaving well when we're reminding ourselves, I feel fear. Okay. How can I calm my fear? How can I remember, as much as I want to buy all 4 bottles in case I need it or people I love need it, I can probably make do with 1 or 2, and then that leaves some more for someone else. How can we just catch the impulse to self-protect? It's an okay impulse, don't worry about it. How can we catch it, examine it, and then choose more mindfully, with more awareness and more grace to say, is this a wise choice? Does this help the larger community or just me? Because it's when we help just me. I don't watch many sort of zombie apocalyptic things. They're just not my genre particularly. It's cool if you like them. That's cool. I like all sorts of dumbass stuff. I'm not judging your choices. Just apocalyptic zombie stuff aren't so much my thing. Duck Dynasty, on the other hand, I'm just saying, I'm not saying I'm better than you by any means. But in the occasional apocalyptic thing I watch, because someone I live with might like them, it always goes really badly when people get selfish, right? That's when we're barricaded in our home with our shotgun and someone else is coming for our stash of water, and we become a hate-based murderer. Each and every one of us in this room are capable of that, of course. We're all capable of Buddha nature. We're all capable of the most deepest poisons possible. Of course we are. So it's when, in those movies, people get fearful. Us against you. They lose interconnectedness. They lose hope. They don't all say, hey, there's only a little bit of water and there's way too many people, but let's share it as best we can. That's where everything goes wrong, right? So, I don't know how each of us will navigate our minds and our choices in the days and weeks to come. And, the blessing and the hope would be that the wisdom-based choices to not gather in huge groups and to stay home if you've got a cough and to wash your hands a lot more. And we're not all going to hug today the way sometimes we enjoy hugging each other. That will hopefully slow things down, and the healthcare system will keep up, and we will manage this difficult, impermanent dukkha fairly well. I don't know, and you don't know. But what I do know is we can remember in our fear that we're better than that. We can remember in our fear to take 1 bottle, not 4. We can remember in our fear to meditate or go for a walk or play with a puppy or call a friend or play a video game on your phone that relaxes your mind. We can remember that we're simply human and we will mess up or have thoughts that are distressful or unkind, and that doesn't make us evil or bad. It makes us able to examine the storyline. Wow, look what the mind just did there. Holy. Okay, can I bring it down? Can I look at the facts? Can I make a mindful, wholesome choice? And can I conduct myself with as much kindness to self and other as is possible? This is simply what the Buddha taught, because the Buddha taught the nature of reality. Everything changes. Some of it's unsatisfactory, unpleasant, scary or worse. Some of it's beautiful, joyful, and compassionate and celebratory. And when we get stuck in protecting ourselves, things go badly. When we make it about me against you, when we forget the interdependence of each of us as humans, as a planet, whole nother talk there. When we forget, things don't go very well. When we remember, we can take a mindful breath and begin again. Okay, what's a wholesome action, thought, or word right now? If I don't know, maybe I can soothe myself and take care of myself until I'm a little more clear how to be kind. Can I donate some clothes? It's cold out there. It's cold out there. Can I donate some clothes to the local shelters? Can I make sure my neighbor, who's older than I am, has a few supplies and give them one of my bottles of Advil? Just the small, gracious things you all do at your best. And you're doing now. And just being kind to yourself if you get stuck in, as we all do, this being included, some of the selfishness or the fear or the what about me? This is a wonderful opportunity to practice. Every day is a wonderful opportunity to practice, but in your own more personal, closed world, if you're going through death of a family member, or there's been a tragic loss, or something rough is happening in your world in general, whenever we meet, there's a few of us in the room who have something pretty rough going on, a pretty big dukkha in our smaller core family, etc. That's a great time to work with your mind. When there's some bigger dukkhas going on, like now, like other natural and unnatural events, great time to practice. It's always a great time to practice, but when the mind is being pulled due to circumstance into possibly more fear and more selfishness, that's a great time to practice. Compassion. But please remember, and we'll do a small meditation on this to close this morning. Please remember self-compassion. It's scary to be scared. It's lonely to be lonely. It's hard to not know what will happen. It's difficult to navigate the information we're getting and be wise. It's easy to judge others. It's easy to have negative opinions. We'd all be kicked out of Buddha Dharma if anybody could have seen some of our judgmental thoughts of the week we've just gone through. Here's one that I suspect a few may share with this mind. When I heard about beings who had rushed out and bought tons and tons and tons of cleaning supplies and hand sanitizer and were selling it for a gigantic profit, I had a pretty judgmental thought about those people. It was an ugly thought. It was a really unkind, probably going to kick me out of Buddha school thought. Because I'm human. And judgments form like that, right? Because probably nobody in the room is excited about that bit of news, right? Oh, those people. When got everything, they're selling it for profiteering from this. Yeah, well, probably lots of people in suits bought certain stocks to profiteer. Do you feel as judgmental about them? I don't know. Watch the mind of judgment. When we hate someone for doing something hateful, we're actually worse than them. Because as the Buddha is not necessarily factually or historically quoted as saying, it's a bit more of a parable. when someone comes and spits in his face. Many of you have heard me tell this story in a Dharma class. He says, the Buddha allegedly says, it's more of a parable, as I say, I don't know that it's factual, repeated factual, but he says in the parable, he's not angry with the person that spat on him, but he's displeased with his monks. He says, from you, I expect better. The fact that the monks were angry at the person that spat on the Buddha, the Buddha's more perturbed by, because they're hating the hater, so to speak, to quote Taylor Swift, the great Dharma teacher. Good teaching comes everywhere. Haters are going to hate, right? Well, when we hate people who do things that are unskillful, including heinous things, we are indulging the quality of aversion and hatred in our mind. Instead of, what if, when a few of you are probably further ahead than me, and you may have had that first thought, oh, wow, that couple's quite confused or caught up in their delusion right now. Quite caught up in thinking, oh, this is a good way to make some money, and their story, maybe I'm even helping people because at least they're getting this stuff, all of that. But just watch for the judgments. They're bad at any time in the human mind, but they can certainly be worse now, and we can be very self-righteous. Right? Oh, who would do that? But then you buy 4 bottles of Tylenol. Well, you would apparently do it. It's pretty natural under fear and not necessarily thinking it through. Because when you buy 4 bottles of Tylenol, you might be thinking really wholesome thoughts. You might be, my mom's elderly, so if I get 4, I can keep one and give 1 to her. It may be quite compassionate thinking. So just watch the judgments of self and other. Smile, have a little smile, a little Buddha smile, a little Mona Lisa smile of, oh yeah, there goes my mind, being holier than thou. Instead of maybe, wow, look at the ways our mind states, the interconnectedness of all human minds, our mind states, where are they wholesome, where are they unwholesome? Where are we doing well right now? Where can we do better? What can we do when we make a mistake? As best you can, repair it, begin again. It's a beautiful mind training, just like every day of being alive, every day of having a mind in a mortal body, a vulnerable body, which is each and every one of our bodies and every animal and insect and worm's body. These are vulnerable human bodies. They don't last forever. And that can create a lot of fear and a lot of delusory ideas that if we just do the right things, we'll be fine forever. So, it's a beautiful time to remember the heart, and it's a beautiful time to be really kind to yourself, especially if you're having extra anxiety, especially if you are being unkind to yourself because you're having a lot of anxiety, and then you're beating yourself up and saying, well, it's really foolish to be worrying like this and panicking. Gosh, I'm an idiot. Try not to do that. Try to bear witness the experience as it is. There's a very fundamental meditation teaching. What is the direct experience in the body and in the mind? That's it. Vipassana. What's the direct experience in the body, in the mind? Well, let's say the direct experience when you focus on it is maybe there's a tightness in the stomach, a sense of a little bit of roiling, a little bit of anxious, unpleasant feeling in the stomach. Be with it with curiosity and spaciousness. There's racing thoughts in the head. There's a lot of fear about my grandmother and her ill health, and what if the virus is in her care home, etc. Be with it with curiosity and grace and spaciousness. Acknowledge that the mind is currently worrying. Acknowledge that the mind is spinning a story that could end up manifesting. It's not a completely woohoo story. It could happen. Acknowledge that there's fear. Acknowledge that there's clinging. Acknowledge that I am human. I am not yet a Buddha. I am experiencing fear. Grace, curiosity, and spaciousness. Direct experience. Bring yourself to the heart. We'll do this in a moment. Bring some pink light, warm rose pink light. John's favorite color now. In the heart. May I be well. May I be happy. May I meet circumstances with grace and compassion. May all beings be well. May all beings be happy. May they meet circumstances with grace and compassion. Whatever words within reason you wish to use. bringing yourself back out of the chaos of the mind and the story and the media and even accurate, scary things. If it goes really badly, it'll go really badly, and we'll be working with that. We'll be interacting with that reality. And bringing yourself back to what's the direct experience? Can I bring compassion to the being, compassion to the mind, meaning my mind, my being? Can I take another mindful breath and begin again? That's what we've got. We've got our choice each moment. Thankfully. Thankfully. Follow guidelines. Purchase a little extra here and there is what's recommended. Little extra food, little extra non-perishable. Hopefully you won't need it. But by purchasing a little extra each time you shop, a little bit prepared, share what you've got. This too will pass. We don't know how or for how long or what the aftermath will be. We don't know. And that's another really important thing to remember from today's class. We don't know. Yeah, this could happen, that could happen. Yep. Be wise. Follow guidelines. Work with the mind. Work with the heart. Be kind. Be compassionate to self and others. Remember, none of this is new. Dukkha has always been part of existence. Impermanence is always going to be part of existence. And the tendency, if we're not careful, to take it personally and protect ourselves and therefore suffer and potentially, inadvertently or directly create suffering for others has always been with us. Unless we're fully awake. I've got a ways to go. But the more we study, the more we open our hearts, the more we support each other with teachings like this, with kind conversations, with supporting each other, the way the team, the committee does, setting up the room, inviting us all, making it possible for me to come teach. This is how we can help ourselves always, and particularly in what seem like uniquely uncertain times. I guess one of the things I'm sharing is this is no more uncertain than any other time. It's just wearing a different jacket. Right? It could be a major earthquake. It could be this. It could be that. Uncertainty. We get maybe reprieves between big bouts of uncertainty, but they're not usually all that long, the reprieves. Even when the world is pretty stable, our relationship, our family, our health may not be. Bouts of uncertainty. Can we meet them with grace? Can we meet them with courage? And can we remember we're interconnected and not make it, at least not make it all the time, all about me? So there's a few words there around working with your mind in uncertain times. All the time. But the pressure cooker's been turned up a little, perhaps, and therefore a really good time to practice more and more. So let's practice together a little bit now. As I alluded to, we'll do a bit of a loving kindness, calming practice that you're very welcome to utilize over and over again forever, and particularly maybe during uncertain times. So I invite you to settle into a posture that's fairly comfortable and yet moderately alert. You don't necessarily want to nap through this. You won't get as much. You can adjust your legs in ways that feels fairly comfortable. Slide back in your chair if you want, so you've got some nice back support. Whatever works for you right now. This will be about a 15-minute practice or so. Maybe 20. And for this practice, I invite us to close our eyes, so you can really be we're simply limiting one of the six senses, the sixth sense being your mind, of vision, to just help draw the attention inward. And I invite you to begin by breathing in and breathing out in the body's own natural rhythm. You don't need to try to breathe more deeply or more slowly. Just allow the body to be breathing. But with your mind, I invite you to place your attention on your heart center. And I invite you to activate the heart center by placing your palm or palms You can glimpse at me if you like to see where, but in your heart center, solar plexus, right in the center of your chest. And what I invite you to do, it's fairly helpful if you do this, is place a palm or both palms there, at least for the next moment or two of the guided meditation. You can leave them there for the whole time if you like. That's also very helpful. But for at least for the next minute or two, I want your palm or palms there, and I want you to press gently, so that the flesh of your palm, the breadth of your palm, is making contact with the chest wall. So not just gently kind of resting your hand there like a bird on a limb, but actually a bit of pressure to really make contact. There's reasons for this, parasympathetic activation and meditative reasons. So a bit of pressure, heart to hand, hand to heart. Those of you who've been exposed to white Tara practice, imagine, and everybody else please as well, imagine in each of your palms there's an eye, an all-seeing eye of compassion, and it's shining its light into your own good heart. And just allowing the body to breathe and inviting your mind to focus or pay attention or lightly rest its attention on that point of contact. So, to put it simply, pay attention to the sensation of breathing in and out at your heart center, where your palm is resting. And you can leave your palm or palms on your heart center. You can rest your palms in your lap if you wish. But with the mind, continue to pay attention to the heart center, and I invite you to imagine that your chest becomes hollow and filled with pale rose pink light. It can be helpful sometimes to imagine or visualize there's a small ball of light about the size of a ping pong ball, a radiant, pale rose pink, like a mini sun, pale pink sun in your chest, and it's radiating gentle warmth and light. As you gently place your attention on the imagination, the experience of breathing in to the heart center on the in-breath, and breathing out from the heart center on the exhale. Refresh the imagination, the visualization, the experience of a warmth and a pale pink rose light, suffusing the heart center, cleansing and calming, supporting and nurturing the heart. And I invite you to direct to yourself some compassionate, kind thoughts. Life can seem quite difficult at any given time. It may or may not be more difficult for some of us in the current uncertain times, and just as best you're able, you can pretend. If you have difficulty contacting it authentically, that's absolutely fine. As best you're able, bring some kindness to yourself. whatever feelings arise or don't arise in any given minute or hour these days. Whatever thoughts or stories we may create or seem to almost pop into the mind unbidden. Some of them wholesome, some of them not. Can we just bring kindness to the following? I too am human. I am a beautiful being of Buddha nature that is sometimes confused or frightened. Can I bring curiosity and spaciousness to my experience instead of judging it harshly? No matter what happens, everything's going to be okay. Because it is, even when we eventually or less eventually die. No matter what happens, everything's going to be okay. And then we'll use some traditional phrases from the time of the Buddha. A metta or loving kindness, compassion practice, directing these thoughts and phrases as best you're currently able to your own good self. May I be well. May I be happy. May I be free from suffering in body and in mind. May I bring compassion and curiosity and spaciousness to my own direct experience. May I release judgment and harshness. May I be well. May I be happy. May I be free from suffering in body and mind. May I hold my experience in the arms of curiosity and spaciousness. May I continue to strive for compassionate action, thinking, and speech. May I be well. May I be happy. May I be free from suffering. Staying with your own direct experience, refreshing the visualization of the pink light or perhaps a pink glowing ball of light in your chest. Recontacting your heart center with your palm if you wish. Just staying with your own meditation experience in silence for a few moments, cultivating this quality of bringing a compassion and acceptance to whatever the direct experience is. Really bringing some kindness and acceptance to the ups and downs, the dukkhas and sukhas, the anicca impermanences, and at times the selfishness and personal self-identifications. Just bringing curiosity, acceptance, and kindness to our beautiful, fully awake selves that are sometimes fairly confused. And expanding our awareness in an instant from the perceived individual to every sentient being on the planet. In a single breath, from the so-called one to the all. May all beings be well. May all beings be happy. May all beings be free from suffering in body and mind. May all beings act with curiosity, grace, and compassion toward themselves and all other beings. May all beings awaken fully and completely for the benefit of each other and all sentient life. May we all be well. May we all be happy. May we all be free from suffering. May we all awaken swiftly into bountiful, limitless compassion and wisdom. Idang te punyakaman asawakyawang hotu. Idang te punyakaman asawakyawang hotu. Idang te punyakaman asawakyawang hotu. By the merit of this strengthening activity, may there be a cessation of the defilements for all beings. May all beings be well. May all beings be happy. May all beings attain to the full awakening.